Hello, all my friends. So I am back for the third video in our Creating a Doodle drawing series. I'm not going to be on camera tonight because I am just not fit for camera tonight. So we're just going to jump straight into the drawings. Hopefully at this point, after the two types of doodles that I showed you yesterday, you had a chance to practice and have added some to your base drawing. So we should have, something that looks kind of like both of these. Some doodles here and there, but some spots still undone as we're still working towards finishing this drawing. I tacked this on at the end of the last video because I forgot to show you, but I've been doing simultaneously with the one I'm teaching you on, I've been doing another one that's a little more angular, because when you draw your base scribble, it might not be as rounded as mine. It might be more angular, and I want you to see that you can do these doodles regardless. It doesn't matter what your base shape is. So I'm kind of doing these side by side while I'm showing you on this one. Afterwards, I'm putting the same things on this one so that you can see that it does work regardless of what your base scribble looks like. So I'm going to set that one aside for now. And we will continue working on this one. I'm hoping to this point that you have all enjoyed the drawing process and are starting to find kind of that zen space that can come with this. That's really my whole goal for teaching you how to do this, besides showing you how to create something pretty. Because I think we all need pretty things to look at. I think that helps. But I do hope that the therapeutic aspect of this type of drawing is coming through as well. So hopefully you're getting that, and I would love to hear in the comments on any of these videos how you're doing with that. Tonight I'm going to show you 3 more kinds of doodles. The first one is one that I like to call peas in a pod. And it may be that I like to call it that because I saw it somewhere. I don't remember. Essentially this one, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see this little spot right here. This one is essentially filling a space with different sized circles and then coloring in around them. That's what makes it look like, when you open a pea pod and you can see all those peas sitting in there, the little circles, and then the shading around them is the darker spot. So I like to do that in longer, smaller areas. You could certainly do it in a bigger area. It just doesn't quite have the same effect to me. So I usually do this in smaller areas. So I'm just going to start by drawing a circle really anywhere in there. That's just kind of my starting spot. And then I'm going to fan out around that, making my circles change size so that I'm hitting all the borders all the way around. And I find that it's easiest to start right next to the circle I just finished and make it go out from there. So you end up with a variety of sizes, and then I'm going to come back this same direction and do it this way. Now you'll notice that circle wasn't exactly round. That's okay. Same thing I told you yesterday. If your lines aren't straight, your circles aren't perfectly round, if they're more oblong or oval, it's really okay, because there's going to be enough going on visually when we get done. It's not going to matter. Now sometimes like this one, you don't always end up right at the end, but that's okay, because you could just put some smaller ones around it. So just kind of adjust the sizes of them to fit the space, and then I'm going to come back and just color in all these little areas right around the tops and the bottoms. Sometimes it helps to switch to a smaller tipped pen to do this, depending on how big or small the area you're working on is. I will often do this one with a smaller pen, but I had this pen in hand, so that's what I'm going to use. I mentioned in the first video this other pen that I like to use. It has a smaller tip, so that smaller tip is often easier to do this type of coloring in, because we're not coloring great big areas, we're just doing little tiny spaces. But for right now, for our purposes, that's going to work just fine. So it kind of looks like little peas in a pod if you open that pod, especially when you zoom out from it and you're not right close to it. You get kind of that peas in a pod look. So what I will usually do at this point in a drawing, if that's the doodle I'm adding, is look for other areas all around my drawing that more of that might fit in. This little area right here is kind of long and narrow, and so is this one. So I would probably do that same thing all the way around there. And this one is small enough, I would switch to my smaller pen for this. But I'm essentially going to do the exact same thing. I'm just drawing little circles to fill that space and color in around them. And you do have the option on any of these, if you decide your lines are too wonky and it's just driving you crazy. I know I've said it's okay, but sometimes there's one that maybe just drives you crazy. For me, it's going to be this one right here because it's really wonky. You can always just bring your pen back in and kind of smooth that shape out. So if there are any spots that are driving you nuts, you can go back over them and smooth them out a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. But if they're just little things, people probably aren't going to notice by the time you get the whole drawing done. Okay, so that's the first one for tonight. Like I said, I will probably do this area with that one as well, but I will do that off camera again so that these videos aren't terribly long. The second one I want to show you tonight is a wonky spiral. And I really love these because they're not, you know, when you think of a spiral, you think a really nice, round, circular, even shape. And it's really hard to do. So I'm going to do this so I can zoom in here. So I like doing them a little wonky to start with because I think, one, they're more fun, and two, they're more visually interesting. So I like to find areas that are round or semi-round, although they don't have to be. And I'll show you on the more angular one here in just a second how that works. Rather than trying to make it really perfect and fit that circle, I'm going to start in the middle. But I'm going to kind of let my pen wander around a little bit and make it not quite perfectly circular. And just let it kind of meander. So you end up with a spiral, but it's really not perfect at all. I don't want it to be perfect. It's deliberately imperfect. We can add a little more character to this by kind of widening that tail end right there and coloring that in. And then I like to go back and on what maybe looks like a corner, because it's not perfectly circular, like right here, I'll just add a line there and color that little bump that sticks out in. And maybe I'll do the same thing right here. And maybe right here. So I'm just kind of going around my spiral, and where there are opportunities to accentuate some of the little bumps and curves, I'm doing that by just adding a little bit of ink and then maybe put a circle in the middle. So I've deliberately made it off kilter, and you can see when you zoom out, it's really got kind of an interesting visual appearance to it. So I'm going to go over here and do the same thing on this one, because this is screaming for it as well, to me. You would obviously look at yours and decide where you want to put these, if you want to use them at all. And again, I'm just kind of deliberately letting my pen wander and make it a little bit random. I'm going to add a tail at that end and a circle in the middle, and then I'm just going to accentuate some of these little bumps and curves by thickening them up a little bit. There's really no rhyme or reason to where I'm doing it. I'm just looking for places that my eye says, yep, maybe make that a little bit thicker. That might look kind of interesting. Okay. I'm going to switch this over to the one that's more angular real quick, because I want to show you that you can do this in sections that are not necessarily round. I'm going to do it in this one. Actually, I already did it in a triangle. I forgot I did this one ahead. So I've got a couple of them in spaces that are not circular. And rather than trying to make it really round, I just did it kind of the shape of the space that it's in. So if I wanted to do another one of those, maybe over here, I'm going to do kind of the same theory. I'm going to start in the middle, but as I'm working my way out and around, rather than trying to make something round, I'm kind of making it try and fit the space that I'm working in. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll just accentuate some of the corners by thickening them up a little bit. And whether you do all the corners or just a couple of the corners, completely up to you and what your eye thinks looks good. So you can use that one whether you're doing something more angular or something more circular. You can also do the peas in a pod on something more angular, maybe in a space like this or a space like this. Again, I like to do that one in the smaller spaces, but certainly you can do it in the bigger spaces. It doesn't hurt anything at all. So I'm going to come back to this one. Now at this point in the drawing, I like to step back from it. It's kind of nice to kind of put it across the room from you, maybe a couple feet, step back from it and take a look at it. In the first video, when we talked about blackening in some of the spaces, I did this one after that first video. It looked like it needed a little more dark. As you're starting to add doodles in here, there may be areas of your drawing that are calling for you to add more dark to it. So maybe like down here, there's a lot of dark up top. I want to bring some of that dark down here. It just feels a little bit unbalanced to me. So as you're going through and you're moving around doing these doodles all over your drawing, and hopefully you've noticed by now I didn't start at one side and work my way across. I'm kind of working all over the place to keep it random so that it doesn't have a real patterned, planned look. So as you're doing that, your eye's going to start noticing places you want to maybe add a little more black. So absolutely fill some of those spaces in as you go, as your eye is telling you that's what I want to put there. Okay? The last one I'm going to show you for tonight. Where am I going to do this one? I'm going to do this one right here. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to do it right here. Right here. This is one that I like to do in longer, narrower areas. Not as small necessarily as these two, but a little bit taller and a little bit narrow. And it's just adding curved lines. So like this, we did straight lines. We're going to do something similar, only we're going to do them curved. And the curve in the line adds a little bit of that 3D dimension to it. So for something like this one, I'm going to start down here in the corner. And I'm just going to make an upside down U. And then I'm going to continue to add lines to that, following that same line all the way across, kind of like I did with the straight ones in the last video. Only I'm going to start where that one meets the dividing line and go up from there. And end it where that meets the dividing line. And what that's going to do is end up making that dividing line a little bit darker because I'm thickening it a little bit. Put your Kleenex under your hand if you need to. I always forget that and end up with smears all over the place. And just work my way up. Again, if your lines are a little bit wonky, that's fine. Turn your drawing if you need to so that you get a good drawing angle. My hand is really shaky tonight, so I got a wonky line. I'm not going to worry about it. If it's easier for you to do these sideways and come at them sideways, then certainly do it sideways. For me, it's often kind of at a 45-degree angle. And I'm just going to continue up until I fill that space. And you can see that by starting and ending where the one before meets that line, I'm darkening that line. And I'm just going to continue all the way up to the top. Now you'll notice up here at the top, I didn't really have enough room to go all the way around again, so I just ended it right here into this black space. And I'm going to finish filling this in down here the exact same way. I'm just following that contour, only I'm following it down to the bottom. And you'll notice that that one's going to get a little bit flatter as it goes, and that's perfectly okay. So what we end up with is contoured lines that give it a little bit of that kind of curved, humped up dimension look to it. So it's the same concept as these, only they're curved. These work best in, like I said, narrower, longer shapes, but it doesn't have to be. You could do them anywhere you wanted to do. I'm probably going to do some more over here. And I don't know where else on here yet. That same thing will work on something more angular. So like here where this triangle is, I could essentially do that same thing, and I could start from either end. In fact, on this one, I think I'm going to start from the other end. You can start from either end. It doesn't matter where you start. I'm doing the same thing, just making those curved lines, starting where the one before it meets the line, and ending where the one before it meets the line. So it has the effect of thickening those dividing lines a little bit. And giving us some added dimension to the drawing. And if your contours vary a little bit, like some of them get a little taller and some of them get a little shorter, that's perfectly okay. Now I'm going to zoom in here for just a second because I want to show you again here at the end. When you hit the end, you often have like one that hits the top dividing line and then you have these spaces on the sides. Just do the same thing, but only in that little corner. Oops. Okay. So you can do all three of these on a drawing that is more curvy or a drawing that is more angular. Doesn't make any difference at all. So there we go. Those are the three for tonight. The peas in a pod, the wonky spirals, and the curved lines. So just like we've done for the last two videos, your homework between now and tomorrow's final video is to practice those. Put a few of those wonky spirals, find a few spots you can put the peas in a pod, and work all over your drawing. Don't try to work from one side to the other because this gives it that more random look. If you want to start another one so that you can practice a little bit more, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, absolutely go ahead and do that. There's no reason you can't have 2 or 3 of these going at one time. So practice those like we've done with the other practice. Really kind of set the environment for yourself, someplace quiet, turn some nice music on if you want. Take your time doing these and let yourself really sink into that practice of concentrating on what you're doing so that all the other stuff that's in your mind can kind of just melt away for a little while and let you have even 5 to 10 minutes of just peaceful drawing time. If you want to draw longer than that, absolutely do it. But if you've only got 5 or 10 minutes, that's part of what I love about these, is that you can start and then you can pick up and walk away and come back where you left off and finish it at another time. Okay, so those are the 3 for today. Tomorrow will be the last video, and I'm going to show you one more structured doodle that we'll do inside, and then we're going to talk about adding some flair to the outside, because you don't have to stay in the lines. I'm a fan of coloring and drawing outside the lines, so we're going to do a little bit of outside the line stuff, and we'll talk about adding some color to it. And I will also give you some resources for where to find ideas for other types of doodles, because these certainly aren't all of them. I just like these because of their visual impact, so I thought those would be fun to show you at the very start. But there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of different ways to doodle, so we'll talk about that more in tomorrow's video. So that's what I've got for you for tonight. As always, If you have questions, you can put those in the video comments or the post comments, and I will answer those as I can. If it is a question that requires a visual answer, I'll draw you some examples too if I need to, okay? So with that, practice those doodles. Have a good night, a good afternoon, a good morning, whatever it is where you are, and I will see you with the final video in this series tomorrow, okay? Bye, everybody.